Welcome to our video series, Canal Days, and thanks for joining us for today's episode of the burial grounds of East Longmeadow, Massachusetts throughout the town's history. I am your host, Carrie, here with my co-host, local historian and founder of Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Colloon. As your personal tour guide, Robert will lead you through some of the most iconic sites and their legends of historic significance throughout New England's preeminent and pivotal state of Massachusetts. With his expert insights, every monument and memorial story comes to life. Afterwards, don't forget to check out his website, holyokecanaltour.org, to access the full Canal Days video and podcast series. Also, check out his free in-person public tours he offers throughout Western Mass and the 2025 schedule for these special events. You can also book personalized private tours for groups of all sizes tailored to your interests. To discover all that and much more, remember to log on to holyokecanaltour.org. So, Robert, can you summarize these cemeteries and their characteristics?
In East Longmeadow, there's 4 Protestant cemeteries, and I'll go from the oldest one. The Baptist Village Cemetery, made in 1783 by the Baptist religion because they wanted to get away from the Congregationalists in Springfield. And they made a nice cemetery for themselves. One characteristic that all the Protestant cemeteries have in East Longmeadow is they go from very old to very new very quickly, as if that they weren't used for a while. And that's true because East Longmeadow didn't exist until, I believe, 1893. And they probably didn't have many people around, and so there's kind of a break. You have these very late 1700, early 1800 burials in these neighborhood cemeteries, and then not many burials at all, and then boom, starting around 1900, a lot of them. Okay, so the first cemetery was this Baptist Village Cemetery on Hampden and Parker. The next one was a Brookside Cemetery on Porter near Allen. That's from 1803. That's the smallest in size of all 4 of them. The Billings Cemetery at Prospect and Pease is also from 1803, and its first burial is a Billings person. Probably it was, definitely was that family that donated the land. That was Thaddeus Billings. And then the Green Lawn Cemetery is from 1828. And that's the last one of all. Now, where would Jewish people go? They'd be buried in Springfield or West Springfield. Where would Catholic people go? There's no Catholic cemeteries in East Longmeadow, but there are Catholic churches. They would be buried in St. Michael's Cemetery and the more modern cemeteries. And if they're French, Canadian, they'd be in St. Aloysius. If they were Polish, they'd be in a Polish denomination cemetery or somewhere around the area there, the closest one to their house usually. And then there are predecessors to the St. Michael's Cemetery. And one's St. Benedict Cemetery in Springfield, and the other one is a cemetery right near the Chicopee-Springfield line called St. Matthew's Cemetery, which is the oldest Catholic cemetery in Western Massachusetts. So you can actually figure out where a person in East Longmeadow is buried by trying to look at these trends. Now I'm going to rock. This one is the difference. It's very ornate, probably because it's the last, it's closest to downtown. It has a beautiful gate here. In memoriam James Rankin, he's buried in this modern part of the cemetery. And the gate structure is very nice looking. Now remember I told you, you go from very old to very new very quickly. This cemetery, the new is separate from the old by a street, but in most of the other 3 cemeteries, you go from the very new to very old within the cemetery. And because East Longmeadow is a break-off community from Longmeadow, that formed very late, the last community ever formed in Hampden County, you have this very strange delineation between the modern and the old burials, and they're right up adjacent to each other. Now in this cemetery, the west is towards the fence, the east 180 degrees away this direction, And so the old burials in this cemetery are facing right into the fence, because the headstone in 1841 still needed to face towards the western direction. The footstone would have to face towards the eastern direction. The body would be towards the headstone, the feet of the person towards the footstone. And so you have a strange look on these very old burials of stones facing into a fence. Now these should be doing the same thing, but someone shifted them around. So Jeremiah Brown at one time faced into the fence, and all these other stones faced right into the fence like the first few in this old section. Alright, so in general there's been not too much messing around with the orientation for the most part. And there's a lot of brown stones still. Right, most cemeteries in Western Massachusetts gave up brownstone by the early 18 teens because they're expensive and they went towards marble. But in East Longmeadow, the home of the brownstones, they went deeper into the 1800s using brownstones. Here's a very late case of a brownstone. Most cemeteries would never have an 1840 burial using a brownstone tablet. Okay? So you've got a very, very different look at the situation here. Right now, this is about General Cemetery of East Longmeadow, and you get a fairly decent look into a very general one. And so I'll give you one final scan. And remember, there's going to be a podcast very similar to this topic on the burial grounds of East Longmeadow throughout its history. That's going to be much longer in depth. And thank you very much.
Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Canal Days. As always, I'm your host Carrie, along with my co-host, founder of Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Cremon. Our Canal Days series delves into the vast collection of historical sites throughout Massachusetts, with Robert's expertise of the local history as our personal guide. Each episode, we uncover history throughout local communities with historic houses, meaningful monuments, preeminent pivotal pioneers, and remarkable remaining remnants, all while uncovering their seminal significance. Today's episode of Canal Days will be discussing the cemeteries of East Longmeadow, Massachusetts. So can you describe the Protestant cemeteries in town?
Yes, there are 4 of them, and the oldest one is the Baptist Village Cemetery from 1783. And that one was started as just as a Baptist village grew up nearby with a Baptist church. They were trying to get away from Springfield and the dominant congregational religion. And this happened many times over in western Massachusetts, as a lot of southern New England. Granby got one, Belchertown, South Hadley, Holyoke. And these Baptist villages would almost always have a church, but sometimes they didn't. But they needed cemeteries, so this is an attempt at a cemetery. It's not even the oldest one of the Baptist cemeteries around. And the Baptist village is still there to the south of the cemetery. And the cemetery now takes in all comers, despite its name. And then in 1802 and 3, the Billings Hill Cemetery and the Brookside Cemetery came in as neighborhood cemeteries within Longmeadow, and are now in East Longmeadow. And neighborhood concept is similar to the Churchyard Cemetery, except it would be owned by the town. Burials would be clustered by families without buying their plots. And so in both of those, you see old burials towards the corner, and the newer burials quickly popped up as East Longmeadow developed in size. These neighborhood cemeteries would take on a look of a few old, and then all of a sudden a lot of modern ones. And then the last of the series was the Green Lawn Cemetery from the 1820s. That one we'll have a tour in this year of 2025. And I'll go through the burials that point out the orientation of the bodies and the orientation of the gravestones. But in this one is the only one of these cemeteries that's in two parts, split by a street. And it has a beautiful gate for itself too.
And are there any Catholic burials, and where are they located?
Sure, there was Catholics that worked and lived in East Longmeadow and the predecessor Longmeadow. And burial records indicate, of course, they were buried in Springfield. Where? Well, you might think that, oh, St. Michael's Cemetery. But remember, that cemetery wasn't really ready till the 1866 or so. Before that, they had two cemeteries. The oldest Catholic cemetery in western central Massachusetts is in Springfield near the Chicopee border, and that's the St. Matthew's Cemetery. That existed from about 1845 onwards. It was filled up in the 1920s. And then the other one that precedes St. Michael's Cemetery is the St. Benedict's Cemetery, and that one's closer to the center of Springfield. And these two choices, if you find old Catholic burials, said died in Longmeadow but buried in Springfield, they're probably one of those two choices. And after that, ethnic groups started coming in, so French Canadians will probably be buried in St. Aloysius of the Indian Orchard section of Springfield. And Polish would be buried in the closest cemetery up to the point that they could start to get their own cemeteries. And so there's a lot of options, so really look into these. If you're having trouble, probably look into those very old Catholic ones.
And we'll be right back after a quick announcement. Are you fascinated by local history and eager to investigate the obscure treasures off the beaten path throughout the state of Massachusetts? Or maybe just seeking an unforgettable cultural activity for family and friends to enjoy? Look no further than Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, founded by Robert Camus. With over a decade of experience, Robert offers captivating tours and presentations of historic sites and landmarks throughout the state. Whether you're interested in canals, cemeteries, charming churches, or more, Robert's tours provide an enriching experience for all. And that's not it. You can also schedule private tours tailored to your interests, ensuring a personalized adventure and unforgettable memories. Perfect for families or groups of all sizes, making for an exciting hands-on learning experience that brings history to life. Simply visit holyokecanaltour.org or email bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com to book your private tour today. So getting back to our podcast, where are the Jewish cemeteries located in town?
All right. Now, there are no Jewish cemeteries, but if there was a Jewish person that lived and worked in East Longmeadow, they would have gone to synagogue in Springfield. And Springfield had 8 synagogues, and they had separate burial grounds for each one. 4 of those are located within Springfield itself, 3 right alongside each other. And then 4 more synagogues of Springfield have their burial grounds in West Springfield. And so there's many options to look into. So if you knew someone that died in this town, from about the 1890s up to the present day, then look into these 8 cemeteries.
And can you give us a brief summary of the burial sites?
Yes. Well, one thing to point out that as of now, I haven't found any Native American burials within East Longmeadow. And if I do, I'll point it out right on my website for you. But of course there are. They just probably haven't been found yet. And you expect that in a town which hasn't been dug up too much. Now, to summarize, notice that it has 4 Protestant cemeteries in East Longmeadow, and there's only one cemetery overall in Longmeadow itself. But East Longmeadow didn't exist till 1893, when it split off from Longmeadow. And so, from the early 1700s up through deep into the 1800s, there were 5 cemeteries in active use around Longmeadow. And when it broke up, 4 of those cemeteries happened to have been in East Longmeadow. And the reason why was that the center of East Longmeadow and Longmeadow were far enough apart that, first of all, you needed neighborhood cemeteries put in. And that's why you got the Billings Cemetery and the Brookside Cemetery. Also had the Baptist escape from Springfield, and that's why you're very far away from Longmeadow Center in the southeast corner of East Longmeadow, you had the Baptist Church and its cemetery put in. And then the last one, the Green Lawn Cemetery, came in very close to the center. And that's when East Longmeadow was starting to develop a sense of itself as a community. That's when a lot of the quarries were being opened up. And so they were opened up for very different reasons. Now, no Catholic cemeteries because the 2 Catholic churches within East Longmeadow came much later, and they had a very big cemetery in Springfield for Catholics, St. Michael's, which was towards the direction of East Longmeadow already. So they really didn't need to open one up. So many options and a nice history behind the burial grounds of East Longmeadow.
And thank you for listening to our Canal Days podcast. And joining us on our journey through the rich history of the Connecticut River Valley. We hope you enjoyed some of the hidden and overlooked marvels and the fascinating stories that shaped our past in the state of Massachusetts. A special thanks to Robert Camus, founder of Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, for sharing his passion and expertise with us. Remember, you can find more information about Robert's tours, book private tours, and explore the Canal Days video and podcast series at holyokecanaltour.org. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, comment, and share. We'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions for future episodes. Don't forget to keep exploring and discovering history that is hidden in plain sight all around us.